In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name, which were born not of blood, nor of the will of flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth.
Lovely to see him taking part, isn't it? Great. I've enjoyed leading up to this Christmas, the subject last week that we looked at, that in the beginning was the Word, and then that Word was made flesh. And the descent of Christ from heaven to earth. And it's just a lovely, lovely subject. I wanted to carry on with it this morning, and then, God willing, tonight. Tonight the subject will be from rags to riches. And we'll look at a verse that is found in the New Testament that will tell us a little bit more. Paul, in a wonderful way, sometimes he elongates his answers, but sometimes he just shortens it so very, very sweetly. And it tells of the coming of Christ in such a wonderful way. So we'll look at that tonight. But the last verse that Luke read to us kindly was, and the Word was made flesh. I read in one book, the infinite became finite. Now, I'm acquainted with both words, but I didn't have a clue what they meant. And so I just looked in the dictionary. I looked at the same dictionary yesterday because we were playing, what was that game we were playing? Articulate, a kid's version of Articulate. And the word was meadow. And I always thought a meadow was woods or a forest. So I said woods. And they were all going on, so they went forest. I said posher, cops, and then all these different things. And I found out in the dictionary that meadow is actually a field. Yeah. So I looked in the dictionary what infinite means. It means boundless. It means unlimited. And when it becomes finite, it means bound. It means limited. What a wonderful picture of Christ, who could skip the clouds, that could fill the earth with his presence, unbounded, unlimited, became bound, lying in a feeding trough, in one place, never able to be in two places at the same time. And so, infinite becomes finite, boundless becomes bound, unlimited becomes limited, invisible becomes visible. They'd never even seen him before. One of the great mysteries that we read right concerning the mystery of godliness is that Paul tells us, do you know, the angels had never seen him before, because it says he was seen of angels. They'd never seen him before. Before the birth, he was spirit, invisible. Even the x-ray eyes of an angel couldn't pick him up. They knew he was there. They would bow in worship before him. But he humbled himself to come into this world and become visible. John writes concerning the coming of Christ in his first epistles, in his opening verse, he said, that which was from the beginning, which we've heard, which we've seen, which we've looked upon. It's a different meaning for that. He's not just saying seen and then looked upon as if he's trying to describe something. It's a deeper meaning again. which we have handled with our own hands, the word of life. We heard him, we saw him, we gazed upon him is a better phrase, we beheld him is a phrase that exactly the same word. Looking to understand more about this one that we've seen, to go deeper into it, that we've handled the word of life. John speaks in his tones about the coming of Christ into this world. And he dwelt among us. I think Neil picked this up a few years ago, I think it was, and he said that word dwelt means tabernacle. It's the same word. If we were to look in the Greek version of the Old Testament, that word tabernacle becomes this word, dwelt. The word there is dwelt. And it's a strange thing what you can be like sometimes. There can be so many likenesses between an object and a subject. And the likenesses between Christ and the tabernacle are so many. So many of them. When he came into this world, there were so many things about him that reflected what the tabernacle was trying to show. Trying its best to point out that there was one coming who would be so special. And we find in the tabernacle some lovely things that tell us about Christ. First of all, it was a dwelling place. It was a dwelling place. When it was first constructed, we are told when Moses completed the work that a cloud covered the tent, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Filled every room. Every corner, it was filled with his glory, so much so that no one could enter in there. And that word glory that it talks about there is the word weight. That's why they couldn't get in there. It was so heavy, the atmosphere. Pregnant, it would seem, with the presence of God. This tabernacle, this tent. We're told, prior to its construction, when God ever wanted to speak to Moses, he always invited him to go up to Mount Sinai, that he might speak to him. And there were occasions when he thundered from the mountaintop, even down to the people that they could hear him. That was his place of communication. I think Moses probably was the fittest of all the prophets, because I think in it's around about chapter 19, I think it is, then he goes up about 3 times, up and down, up and down, up and down. He goes up there, and the first word the Lord says to him is, go down and tell the people. And so we find Moses in chapter 19 of Exodus, he's up and down. That's the way he used to communicate. But in Leviticus chapter 1, it opens with these words. And the Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the tabernacle. It had gone from a mountaintop experience to right down on the city square, so to speak. Right in the heart, God was speaking. And so we find with this lovely little picture of the dwelling place, we find too with Christ that he becomes the dwelling place of God. Veiled in flesh, the Godhead see. Hail the incarnate deity. We find in the New Testament, I think it's one of the phrases that Luke read out to us, we beheld, we gazed upon his glory. The glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Whilst there were just a few occasions where he allowed, primarily one occasion really, where we could definitely say his glory was revealed up there on the mountain. Yet we find with Christ that God was veiled behind skin. In the Old Testament, he was veiled behind animal hides. Now he's veiled behind human skin. And the world could see him. And they beheld his glory. Another thing concerning the tabernacle is that it was a meeting place. It was sometimes called the tent of the congregation or the tent of meeting. It was a meeting place. Its position in the camp when the camp was to be set up, it was dead center of the camp. And immediately around the tabernacle, they camped the tribe of Levi, all around the tabernacle, on the boundary line. And then on each of the four sides, the 12 tribes of Israel all gathered together under their emblems, their flags, their banners. And there they would gather, and he was dead center of the camp. It was the meeting place. And so we find also, in regard to this meeting place, that even when it was taken up to be moved on in the Exodus journey, even then it travelled in the midst of the camp, we are told. It was always at the heart, at the centre of everything. We find in this place, if you wanted to draw near to God, you would go there, to the tabernacle. It was the meeting place. And so we find with Christ that he too is the meeting place. We find with Christ that he is one that unto him shall the gathering of the people be. An old prophecy by Jacob in Genesis 49. They're talking about him in the first book of the Bible. Unto him shall the gathering of the people be. And then we find in his ministry, don't we? On one occasion, a great multitude followed him. And they came from Galilee, from Judea, from Jerusalem, from Idumea, and from Tyre and Sidon. They came from all quarters to come and meet with him. It says so succinctly, doesn't it, concerning Christ, no man comes unto the Father but by me. He is the mediator, the go-between, between both God and man, the meeting place. He's the dwelling place, he's the meeting place. We find also that it's a blessed place. I mentioned just a moment ago, if you wanted to meet with God, you went to the tent of meeting. If you wanted to draw near, that's where you would go. If you wanted to put your life right with God, it's to the tabernacle that you would go. If you wanted to offer worship, it's to the tabernacle you would go. It was the central point, the meeting place, and a place where people could gather together. It says concerning Christ, in regards of, where's my notes gone? In regards of drawing people unto him, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men to me. It was a blessed place. It didn't matter what state of heart you were in. If you came, you could be drawn. It was a place where the law resided. It was kept in a box, in an ark, there at the heart of the tabernacle itself. There it was preserved, ever to be unchanging. And it says concerning Christ, I have hidden your law within my heart. It was there that you went to sacrifice. And we find concerning Christ that it's to him you go for sacrifice. As I said, if I be lifted up from the earth, I'll draw all men unto me. If you were hungry, if you were a priest, there you were fed. If you were a servant of God in the Levi tribe, there you were fed. And we find concerning Christ that he's the bread of life to all that wish to feed upon God. He's the very bread of life. We find concerning him as well that God has blessed us with every spiritual blessing in heavenly places in Christ. It's a blessed place. It's a blessed place to come. A dwelling place, a meeting place, and a blessed place. It's a temporary place. In the Exodus journey, the tabernacle hardly ever stayed in one place for long. It was on the move. And so we find with it that it was constantly moving onward. Unlike the temple, which was to follow hundreds of years later, unlike the temple which was fixed, we find that the tabernacle was not designed it was designed to be moved, to be taken from one place to another, to make it easy for the people to come and set up camp and to have that as the center of worship. It was always on the move. We find with Christ that he's always on the move. A great revival breaks out at Simon and Andrew's house. Tremendous things go on there. And surely he's going to stay there. And Simon Peter and some of the disciples, they get up early in the morning, go searching for him, because he's left the bedroom. He's left his bed and he's gone out in the early hours of the morning into the wilderness, a solitary place. And Peter and the disciples have gone out according to the Gospel of Mark, and there, as they find him, a great rush of people are coming in behind them as well. And so Peter says, surely we're going to stay here. Listen to the words of Jesus. Let us go into the next town and village. For that's the reason I've been called. Let us go into the next town and village, that I might preach the gospel there also. He's always on the move. In the little chapters that we looked at, chapter 3 and chapter 4 of the Gospel of John, we find there that he's in Jerusalem. Then we find him moving through, heading towards Galilee. And then on his way to Galilee, he goes to Samaria. And then after he's finished for Samaria, after they asked him to stay, and he stayed 2 days, one of the longest stays that he had in one place. He moved into Galilee. And then in the very next chapter, we find that he's gone back up into it, or back down into Jerusalem again. And so he's always on the move. He's mobile. It's a temporary building, and he's there moving on. We find also it's a humble place. It could fit in anywhere. If you took away the surrounding white linen that went around it, the boundary that kept everything out, and the gate that was there, it would fit in with all the other tents. It was bigger than the other tents, granted, presumably so. It was very dull looking. It was designed not to, it wasn't designed to attract attention. In fact, you'd have to say it was a very mean building. It was a mean construction. It was unattractive. It didn't draw your attention at all. And so we find with Christ that he too, when he came into this world, he was unattractive. The prophet writes these words: he has no stately form, no splendor, and when we see him, there is no beauty that we should desire. You see, he fitted in with the crowd. He didn't stand out in the sense of, like Saul, head and shoulders above. Nothing like that at all. We find that he fitted in quite easily with the crowds that were around him. And so like Christ, or like the tabernacle, he was God's dwelling place, or is God's dwelling place. With it, he is also God's meeting place. He's God's blessed place. He's God's, temporary place. Just 33 years, that's what they say. Say under 35, call it that. Under 35 years, and his time on earth was finished. It became also a humble place. And the humility of Christ that comes through, we see it there in the gospel story of his birth into this world. A very humble beginning. So tonight we'll have a little look at, from rags to riches, some of the things that Paul brings out to us, that hopefully we can fit into the Christmas story.